Since it's in and it's working, it's converted. So yeah, it's all good to go. Hey everyone.
Erection.
Guess what we were talking about before we came on air?
It feels real awkward because right next to me, like between me, there's a pane of glass between us, but there's like a maybe a 5-year-old girl sitting just to my left.
And
and
you're talking about snowballs?
Wow, yeah.
We were talking about Kevin's snowball.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my snowball at the moment is very, very close to my face. So.
Right. Yeah, it was. He was plugging in his mic. Anyway, guys. Hey, welcome to another happy hour. A lot has happened since the last time we talked, but we set up this one to talk about MythCon, so we're going to talk about that first and foremost. Now, initially, we were going to do it with Michael Rowlands, who's here. Hello, Michael. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Himself. Okay.
No, I did it. I'm good. I'm on the button.
Yep.
Got it.
Then we invited also Chrisiousity and Vadim Newquist, and I advertised their appearances. And then Vadim is running late, and we haven't heard from Chrisiousity yet. So it looks like it's definitely going to be with Michael Rowlands.
We can only
Let's be honest. You got the cream of the crop. You did. You got the.
Well, but we can only assume that Kristi and Vadim are both masturbating furiously as we speak.
Chrisioity, or I'm not. I've got other things to do right now.
Well, you certainly don't say. If you are, you're doing it wrong. I can link you to various websites that will assist with buying
instructional websites.
They can change such things.
And by the way, hello, Kevin, our co-host of the Happy Hour, jumping in with another sexual reference. This is par for the course in the show.
Yes, well, if not being inappropriate is a crime, then put me in fucking jail.
You maybe not, but definitely Tommy Robinson.
I was just about to say Tommy Robinson. Yes.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Can I show you guys the newest addition to my Fluffy Things collection that I got when I was in the States?
Are you going to show me like?
I'm going to show you my junk. Yes.
Dystopia Reminge artwork.
Yeah.
And no, I'll turn on my camera. Hold on.
There's a party in Mark's pants, and everyone's invited.
Can you see me? This is me. But this is Pusheen riding a rainbow unicorn.
Aww,
she sits on my bag, and people keep saying, "Oh, I like your unicorn," and I'm like, "It's being ridden by Pusheen," and they're like, "Oh my god, it's great."
Vadim's just joined, and he hasn't had a chance to see it again. So can you show it?
I haven't seen it because I had it on audio only because my internet is shite.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Pusheen.
So the big debate question that you missed, Vadim, were you masturbating?
I'm sorry, what?
You fucking heard me, boy.
Did I masturbate on him?
No. Before you got on the show.
But we couldn't hear you, Kevin, because he was masturbating so furiously.
The show as well.
Yeah.
Before I went on stage? Is that?
Well, to get the nerves out, just to get rid of the nerves.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you were late for the show because you had a quote unquote unexpected errand.
Right. Yeah, totally wasn't masturbating about 5 minutes ago.
When you watch the show back, this will all seem a lot more normal.
Together or something? No, we were going to be talking about such a thing.
Sorry, joking, not talking, joking. It's okay.
Yes, I know.
And we can have a serious conversation if you want, but it's not really.
I don't want to perpetuate negative stereotypes. It's, I just, if you want to know, I was dealing with, we had, is absolutely disgusting, but we had some like this trash can full of maggots, and you should have asked me the question,
Well,
yeah, that's
so was that helpful in the masturbating, or was that kind of
Yes. As a matter of fact, that just eliminated them completely. I won't elaborate too much, but
they all scurried off. They all just sort of ran in the other direction. Went down.
Like, oh god,
my ejaculate is so forceful that it.
Really don't want
me to go down this road. But how is everyone? What did I miss besides this talk? Are we live?
Yes. By the way, during the show on it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We're just doing introductions.
Okay.
Well,
that makes it sound so much better.
I'm glad you didn't tell that really racist joke that you like to tell off air.
Yeah.
That would have been crazy.
Yeah, well, so we had just had the introduction, so welcome, Vadim. It's nice that you are able to get some time off being a slave to CC. So,
Michael, fucking mute yourself, man.
Sorry.
And before we do the MythCon thing, we have our traditional pub quiz question that we do here on the happy hour.
I have one too.
Yes. Okay, so we got 2 this week because we got double the number of people, so we got double the number of questions.
Michael Rowlands is putting in more effort than I am.
Basically.
Yeah, damn straight. Sort your shit out.
Shame. All right, so before we came on air, I looked up a fact. So I'm gonna.
If it's the capital of fucking Colorado, I'm going to be annoyed.
The question for this week's pub quiz is: what autumn festival activity did Romans introduce into Britain?
Masturbation.
Orgies.
Every time Kevin is right, and Michael by extension, sort of, because orgies sort of encompass that. No, that's not it at all. But
if you're masturbating during an orgy, you're doing it wrong.
Right, so I'm going to have a look at the chat.
Well,
you could be shy.
Well, it depends. It depends. If you're masturbating yourself, you're doing it wrong. Yes.
Just sitting quietly in a corner, jacking off.
Yeah, that's a missed opportunity. If you're jacking someone else off, then fair play. That's all part of the fun. But
this is why I mark our content adult, mature when it goes up on the podcast.
Well, that's why I don't bother contesting the demonetization. There's no point.
There was a skit show I used to watch when I was a kid, and I remember this one skit in particular. You know the whole trope of like adults going around to other people's houses for an orgy, and then they put their keys in the bowl, and then they take the key out, and then that's the person they bang, right? So this particular one, everyone puts the keys in the bowls, and everyone pulls their keys out. And this one guy, he pulls out the key, and he goes, "Oh, for fuck's sake, not again!" And then it cuts to a shot of like there's the couple of people banging inside, and he's sitting outside riding the ride-on lawnmower.
The lawnmower keys.
Riding the what?
Lawnmower.
No.
All right, so staying focused, Michael, why don't you give out your question, and then I'll give out the answer. Nobody in the chat. Oh, there's some guesses in the chat, but none of them have been right so far.
Autumn festival the Romans introduced
into Britain, yes.
Autumn festival.
The ritual beating of the brown people because England was really racist. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, you already guys are just... Okay, so Michael, you want to do your question, and then I'll give the answer. Just give the chat a little bit more time. Okay,
so the coffee place that I'm sitting in at the moment, they have these things that have your table number on, and they've done this cute thing where they put like a piece of trivia, and then the answer is your table number, right? So the one I had was how many. And the reason I'm asking this is because I think it's bullshit, because I ran the numbers and it totally doesn't work out. But anyway,
don't give the answer right away. Just read through the question.
I was about to say, Michael, I can't imagine. This is a scientific house of learning. Your research methodology of
this is
basically trusting some restaurant staff to get this right.
It was
how many rigorous.
All right, Kevin. All right, Jesus. How many?
No, you don't. You don't come into my house and say and push me along as if I'm not there. I will rant and rave as much as I damn well please, young sir.
Well, it's just getting me a little turned on, so you need to just chill out a little bit so I can.
Well, you should have done what Vadim did in a pre-show wank. Jesus.
All right, so
I did, but I'm getting back on the horse already. You know.
Speaking of getting back on the horse, the question.
That's the question. Okay, so how many thousand tons of food does an average person eat in their lifetime?
Okay, so that's a question. How is it tons? 100,000 tons?
-4.
Like hundreds of thousands, like 1,000 tons is.
Okay, so the metric is kind of fuzzy, but do some calculations, chat, see what you come up with. The answer to mine, the tradition that the Romans brought with in terms of their autumn festival activity, is bobbing for apples. They also did a version of it, which is like the world's shittiest piñata, where you hang the apples on string from a tree and then you try to bite them.
Oh.
That just sounds stupid.
I thought you were going to say you smack them, and I'm like, that's just ruining the apples.
Right. That's why I said it's like the stupidest version of a piñata. Because you throw your face at
and then the loser would be fed to the lions.
Yes.
But they also introduced straight roads and aquifers to Britain. So, I mean, I think that was their bigger contribution, if I'm honest.
That's true, but you're still doing the bobbing and the apples, and you're not really using the other things anymore.
Well, we're not really bobbing for apples.
Yeah, all the roads are fucking gay as hell. They're not straight anymore.
Oh, I used to bob for apples in the States. So, but anyway, so Michael, what was the answer that you don't believe?
Well, according to this thing, it was 36,000 tons of food, which equates to 36 million kilograms, which works out to something like, I don't know, like 3,000 kilograms a day or something. And I was like, that makes no fucking sense.
Are you going to weigh your food just to test this theory?
Okay, Kristi, if you eat 1,000 kilograms of food a day,
I don't know. I don't.
That's a lot.
I'm American. These are just meaningless numbers to me.
You're saying numbers to mean nothing.
No,
yeah.
So I don't know, like 2,600 pounds of food a day.
That doesn't seem
a bit
right.
much. That's a bit much.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that include the number of spiders you eat accidentally in your sleep?
I hear that your average spider eats between 1 and 8 humans a night in its sleep.
All right, so Crunchy. That's going to wrap up our pub quiz trivia questions, which one was a legit question and one that Michael admits is dodgy. So not actually trivia, more like rumors.
And
so
then no one understands because of my metrics. So.
Right. So we are having you guys here.
94 billion kilometers away. That could be really close. That could be really far. Who fucking knows?
Who knows?
You guys around the corner. I'm going to lean over and pick up my 5-pound bag of potato chips and just eat them all right now. Okay. Right, so let's go and have you guys talk about why you're here, which is MythCon. So MythCon happened. You guys were live and in person, and we want to hear a little bit about the conference itself. So I talked a bit in the pre-show messaging, which I think nobody read. But we're just going to go chronologically. Before the con and sort of arriving there, your top 3 points, and then we'll have a brief discussion. Try to keep, and then we'll talk about the first half of the con and whatever panel you were on, the second half, and if you were on a panel in the second half, and then the after party, and then reflections. And for each one, just to kind of focus it, because there's 4 of us in the room, and if Chrisiousity joins us, it'll be 5, and that's a lot of people to talk. I'll go one at a time. If you could give me like your top 3 sort of thoughts on that time period, and then we'll do a little discussion, and I'll try to keep you to about 7 to 10 minutes. And then we'll move on to the other person, and then we could always have a little more discussion. If it's your panel, of course, we can go longer, but just so that we don't end up an hour and a half into it, and we're not even halfway through. So that's the goal. All right, so why don't we start with you, Vadim? Oh, and wow. Just
Chris!
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hey!
The female daredevil herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. We were just we'd been spending this much time faffing about talking about sexually questionable things.
Well, we were fapping about fapping.
Yeah, fapping about. And then Michael had a trivia question that was really probably quite dubious. So that's what you missed.
Okay.
Frankly, embarrassed us as well.
Right. So, and I was just getting to the point where I was going to ask Vadim about his experiences at MythCon, sort of like leading up to it, some thoughts and arriving there with pre-stuff.
I wanted to do in honor of the Supreme Court. I was going to do a rape culture trivia question.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah. Please, I'm glad you did.
So, in 16 Candles, the dream boy Jake Ryan hands off his drunk girlfriend to another man, saying to him, "Have fun." Who was the other person that he hooked? He handed his girlfriend Caroline over, which was funny, by the way.
Yeah, at the time.
Was it Brett Kavanaugh?
Was it Long? I forget the name of the character. Like there was some like horrible Asian caricature that would never fly in today's movies. That
was Long Duck Dong, and no.
It's been a while since I've seen 16 Candles.
Was it the God of the Bible?
No.
Was it Kevin Spacey or Louis C.K.?
Oh, so PZ Myers got it. Geek. It was the Geek, played by Anthony Michael Hall.
Okay.
Oh.
Funny because I think what's her face? Molly Ringwald spoke up about, and I haven't revisited the movie, and I didn't read the articles.
Breakfast Club.
She's correct. She spoke up about how kind of like the Breakfast Club is somewhat troublesome in the wake of the Me Too movement and kind of just modern sensibilities. And it's, now that I think about it, it's a little surprising that she didn't bring up 16 Candles as well. Maybe she did.
I think she did. I'm not 100%, but like all of those movies, like all of them. I tried to think of a teen movie from the 80s that didn't have some sort of rapey or sexual harassment subplot, and I couldn't think
of
one.
The Goonies, that's true.
Well, I guess in the Goonies, there is that scene where the boyfriend is trying to use his mirror to see down the front of his girlfriend's top.
Yeah, and that same guy tried to like, was all mad at her because she wouldn't go with him.
Well, like back to
I haven't seen many of these movies,
which is pretty questionable in retrospect. Although he is a hero and very well liked in the movie. But yeah, should we move on to MythCon related stuff?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go first since you handed it over to me before.
Yeah.
So just I guess I'll just say very quickly that in the pre-portion before the actual the first day, I spent most of that time with both Chrissy and Mike, and that was highly enjoyable. The first person who I met while I was there was actually, I don't know if you guys know who this is, Rucka Ali. And
he's the bloke who sung that song.
Yes, he's sort of like a somewhat of a shitlord, but he doesn't really identify with the YouTube community that much, like or at least like the skeptic / atheist community. He was a super nice guy. I got along with him, even though that we had like huge. I mean, like basically, this guy is an Ayn Rand objectivist, and he's also someone who thinks that the majority of Ayn Rand fans are fucking insane and whatnot. And I do have to say, even though that everything I've learned about Ayn Rand has turned me off completely to her, he put forth, like, he can articulate these ideals in a very well put together fashion. Like, I'll give him that. So we talked a lot about that, and then like my particular point of view, and got some tacos together. That was fun. Then there was this party. Really just, I know everybody has a talk, so I'm just giving a brief rundown. There was a party that I had a very good time at for the most part. My like negative takeaways from that was that unfortunately, and I really respect this girl, but Theron Meyer, I felt like I was very much looking forward to meeting her, and maybe it's because she has this, even though that she disagrees with certain things with Blair White, I think she has a lot of solidarity with her. She considers her a good friend, and so I do not at all hold it against her. Like, I still respect her for a number of reasons, but I was dismayed at the fact that I felt like she wasn't overtly rude to me, but I just felt like she just really didn't want to get to know me, and my attempts to talk with her were unsuccessful. One very funny thing that occurred was that I was talking to the girl who was on the Black Lives Matter / Black social activism panel. And she was talking with Derek Blackman, who also his for those who don't know, his YouTube channel is Some Black Guy. And she did not know this. And so as I was talking with her, I said, "Oh, so you're on a panel with Some Black Guy?" And she said, "Excuse me?" And that would otherwise, if you did not know that was his channel name, sound pretty questionable. Right. And then I told her, the deal, and we both had a good laugh over that. At the
I was there, can confirm.
Yeah, at the party, I would say that I got along with a bunch of people who I would not expect to get along with. Or no, I mean, I guess some of those people I sort of expected to get along with. I do have to say, even though that I have still remained to have like significant issues with, say, shoe on head, for instance. Like I do have to say she was super nice, I think, to us all. That is not an excuse, again, for things that I have, things that I think are problematic about her videos and whatnot. But she was very supportive of us, and she was putting a foot forward, because we've had some difficulties in the past, and I definitely appreciated that. The one person who I completely avoided at that party was Carl. I later had a mild bit of conversation with him, but I'll save that for later. The last thing that I'll say, since I think we need to move on to other people. One thing that happened on the way home, I got a ride with one of the MythCon guys. I'm not going to say which one, and his wife, and we were having a pretty fun, pleasant conversation. And I don't know, maybe this was kind of like the equivalent of for lack of a better way of putting it, like busting someone's balls, like you know what I mean, just like kind of a friendly way of giving people a hard time. But I was telling him this story of something that happened in my youth, where I was basically like attacked by several. It was a very strange thing. I was at a concert and I started getting stabbed with forks by these very short Asian girls. And I've never been a violent guy, but I basically I had to defend myself because they would not stop. And I basically, what a horrible thing to say on this of all hangouts, but I had to turn around and like hit them, because they were seriously going to like break my skin, and it hurt. And so I was telling him about this, and he said something which really rubbed me the wrong way, which was something to the effect of, "Wow, that just kind of goes against who I think you are." And I was like, "Well, I don't understand what you mean, man. If like, I'm all for if somebody's being attacked, like defending yourself." And he said, "Yeah, but you're just all about this beta kind of like peace and love stuff." And it was the beta word that he used that really, like, again, maybe he was joking around, but it didn't feel that way. It really felt in the moment sort of like, wow, okay, so this is what this guy really thinks of me. And fine, if that's his take, fine. But it's sort of like, I did find that insulting. And just to be 100%, we later got along well. And, like, those guys are, in my opinion, in sort of like a red-pilled bubble. So it's not the most surprising thing to hear, but it was sort of like, I enjoyed myself so much, and I felt like kind of accepted by the majority of people who were there. And then when he said that, I just felt like, oh God, like, maybe he just doesn't have that much respect for me. I don't know. Maybe, that was something that I just rubbed me the wrong way. And like I said, later we got along after that, and he was super drunk. But yeah, so there you go. I'm sorry if I am kind of wrong.
You are actually
That's incredibly unprofessional of him, really. At the best, it's unprofessional, I think. That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's had their time when they've been stabbed by 4 Asian women with forks. You've got to deal with that in an appropriate way.
Yeah. I mean, this was a very loud concert, and there were people all around us. Normally, I'd be like, "Help! Hello, security!" Something like that. But I just did that. There was no recourse but to kind of do what I did. And I mean, it's honestly that, and well, another thing that was mentioned at the con, which I'll get to later, I won't mention now, are the two most violent things that I've ever done in my life. I don't believe in fighting. I don't believe that it like solves anything. I only think that it's justified when like it's a last recourse kind of a thing. So anyhow, maybe a bit more than you needed to know. But those are my first impressions of the very first day.
Yeah. No, and I would also say self-defense is a natural and legal reaction to having somebody poke you with things that are hurting you. That's completely reasonable. So Chrisiousity, actually, since you joined us, and Michael already had a chance to talk a little bit, I wanted to ask you kind of, if you could think about, if you want to, like your top 3 things, just to sort of organize it, but your first, before you got to the con, so that same time period, and yeah, within about 7 minutes or so, if you could.
Well, the party that other people went to, I had decided not to go to, because Mario Quadracci was hosting the party, and I don't agree with the lawsuit that they are, that he is helping Richard Carrier out on with. There's nothing about that whole situation that I find to be acceptable to me. And so when I found out that it was going to be at his house, I was like, well, I guess I'll just stay in. So I don't have like good stories about that or anything. It was just, I hung out with. Yeah.
You want to talk about that? How you prepared for your panel?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I got some books on intersectionality.
What was the question again? The topic, or how they worded it?
What is the impact of intersectionality, which I felt was very broad. But people seem to think that that was a good thing. I prefer, like, it's only an hour, so trying to sum up something as broad as the impact of intersectionality is it's just kind of ridiculous to me. Like, you could talk about that for a week, you know. But but I did get, you know, I got all my ducks in a row as far as going back, and I've read, there's a recent like textbook kind of thing that's been released on intersectionality, which I don't have here, so I can't tell you which one it is. And then the other book that I got that I actually brought with me was one about intersectionality and culturally competent practices as relates to domestic violence. Because I think it's important for people to understand that intersectionality is not an analytic tool intended to make college students more annoying. It's a real thing that is used in the real world, right, and has actual impacts in the real world. Like, there are people who use it, and this is how and why they use it in these things. And nobody's going to make a YouTube video about it, and it's not going to be dramatic, but that's what it's all about. It's about people who are social workers, human resources people, those kinds of people going out and saying, okay, can you hear my kids? A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's not that. We know they're part of the atmosphere.
Sorry.
So
different things like knowing that a person who maybe is domestically abused but is an immigrant might have concerns coming forward because of their immigration status. They might have concerns because of their inability to speak in English. Like, these all sound like very basic, simple things that when you hear them, you go, oh yeah, duh. But it is useful to have this tool to sort of guide your practice. And it's sort of a best practices, culturally competent practice that people, it's almost a basic thing for people in that kind of field. So that's one of the things that I hope I made clear when I was talking on my panel to people. Like, you can't think about this as, oh my God, postmodernist culture, Marxist, you know, it's not what it's. You try to go in and help a wide variety of people coming from all different places and times and classes and races and cultures and try to just like do it on the fly. And you see how well it goes. No, that's not how you want to do it. You want to have it. You want to put your ducks in a row first. That way you're not sort of ad hoc responding to a situation you've never encountered before and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that was me.
Yeah. When I talk about intersectionality with people, especially on Twitter, which is such a, soundbite short thing for them, I usually go and dig up medical studies that use intersectionality, epidemiological studies or other health sciences, because their main critique of intersectionality is that they see it being used in the social sciences, which they discredit. So if you present them with its application in something like medicine that has specific outcomes and really high prestige in their own eyes because it's STEM, right? That tends to show its application isn't just limited to, gender studies. So, as you were saying. Thanks for that. Anyone else want to ask anything of Chrisiousity before we move on to Michael and his impressions?
What was it like? What was it like to meet the famous Michael Rowlands in person?
Well, I have met famous Michael Rowlands before, so.
Yeah, it's true. This is our third time hanging out, right? Third time?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I had a blast with both of these guys, and I do want to add one quick thing, which that Mike and I both we did ponder not going to Mario's party for the same reason that Chrisiousity did, and we I think felt a little conflicted about leaving her alone and whatnot. But my reason for going was sort of like I'm kind of a morbidly curious person when it comes to like people. Like I love people watching, and I just kind of wanted to see what the whole thing was like. And I did end up having a better time than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be drudgery, and both because Mike was there and a lot of other people were just were pleasant. It ended up being a good time. Although there were some weird things that I won't go into because we don't have time to discuss everything. So anyway, I just wanted to chime in with that.
So the thing about meeting people in real life is there's no Twitter profile.
So can you talk? No, you can't.
Hello. Hi, hello.
Oh, your sound is down for some reason. Okay, now we've got you back. We got you
Hello,
back.
hi.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say the thing about meeting people in real life is they don't have a Twitter profile for you to conveniently look at and see what they're all about. So you have to actually ask them. So like the very first person that I talked to, like I was talking to this dude and I was like, so hey, what do you do? Da, 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 da. And like he used the words red-pilled unironically, and then told me he was part of that British men's rights party. And I was like, oh, okay, I know that party. That's interesting. And I swiftly slinked away. No, we had an alright conversation, but it was.
Would that be the Justice for Men and Boys open brackets and the Women Who Open close brackets party?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, he's like, it's the only men's rights party in London or something.
Well, it is. It's the only one in the English-speaking world that we're aware of. I just want to point out that Paul Buchanan, the leader of that party, when he stood in the 2015 general election, got 153 votes. 153.
That's impressive.
Yeah, we're getting some wind. I don't know if you can move your mic out of the wind, Michael.
Yeah, I'm trying to put my back to the wind, but
why are you outside, sorry. You madman?
Because the internet that I'm using is like 4G, and I need I'm staying with my gran in Palmerston North at the moment, and inside the house it doesn't do so well, so I'm outside in the sun.
Well, is it because you're actually like leeching internet from like a library, but you have to do it outside, so it's not obvious? What's happening?
No, I wish that was the case. That would perfectly describe me as a human.
No, that was quite bleak.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, MythCon. Back to MythCon. I've got nothing.
MythCon. Back to MythCon. On topic. Let's go. So we got to the place. I kind of got to the hotel and I got to I ran into Vadim, and so we just kind of hung out for a little bit, and then we were kind of contemplating. I was contemplating not going because I was kind of anxious about meeting all these, like being there amongst all these people that I really don't like, and being rather uncomfortable the whole time. That was the thought that I had in my head. So I sort of floated the idea with Chris of just like buying a bunch of booze and going back to the hotel room and getting really drunk. But
they love. I'm sorry, just to chime in. Like I think Mike was probably the hit of the party, to tell you the truth. Like he was that. I really do think so. People were really taking to you, and not that people were being an asshole to me, but yeah, I noticed that people really wanted to talk to you, and just you're hilarious. So you were a hit at the party.
That's weird. My take. Yeah, so I mean, obviously we decided to go, and got there. Like I say, I met Mr. Justice for Men and Boys man. I saw Carl in the corner talking to someone, but I pretty much avoided him the entire night. I did avoid him the entire night. I remember this one time in particular when someone came up to me and was like, I went and told Carl that you were here, and he was like, oh really, where is he? And then that was the end of that. That was my impression of Carl, by the way. Thanks very much. I spent a lot of time talking to Mario. I'd never met him before, but he's a musician and a composer and a guitarist, so we got on really well on that level. He showed me his studio, and so I got to see all his guitars and like guitar pedals and things like that. So that was kind of cool. So we spent a lot of time talking. At this time, I was actually kind of drunk because I got there and I was like, right, wine time. And I found some New Zealand wine, which made me pretty happy. So I got some New Zealand wine and started talking with people. And then I suppose, and it sounds really weird, and I just don't know why it kind of happened, but I started talking with Jeremy, the quartering guy. He just kind of came up to me and was like, hey, Michael. And I was like, oh, hey. And like I say, by this time I was a little drunk because there's like a keg and stuff. And so and when the drunker I get, the more kind of friendly I get. So we just kind of talked the whole night. It was really kind of, in retrospect, kind of icky, but like he, I don't know. It just kind of got on on a personal level, I suppose. I can't even remember what we were talking about most of the time.
Did you at any point suggest that your breasts weren't fulsome enough?
I mean, he may have. It's more than likely. He suggested, and I think we did this, is to like, take photos of ourselves together and put them on Twitter to blow everyone's minds. And so we did that at some point. And so, that was kind of fun.
I should say my very brief interaction with the quartering, because I was with, I want to say Dimitri, and who was one of the organizers, and the quartering came over. So he introduced us, and he's like, hi, this is Jeremy, this is, and he said, oh, hi. And I said, so how are you doing with Shira's tits? Have you adjusted yet? And and he was like, well,
Chrisiousity, marry me. Please marry me.
And Dimitri laughed his ass off and said, oh my God,
That's
I wish
funny.
I had a video of that.
That's funny.
Wow, you're my hero. You were my hero.
Yeah.
So good.
He was pretty much avoiding me for most of the time. And for those who don't know, I made a video kind of skewering both him and Sargon and someone else for that whole Shira thing, which I hope people check out because I really enjoyed that video. But at the end of the night, he bought Mike a drink at the hotel, and I was buying a drink at the same time, and he insisted.
There's no fucking way in this world I would accept a drink unmonitored from the quartering. Not happening.
Well, the drink was within my eye shot the entire time.
Okay,
so
well, that's okay.
There's no point that he could have slipped a roofie in there.
You're saying they wanted to be pretty friendly with me, It's, ooh.
I want to say one thing real quick is that yes, he was. I noticed he was super nice to Mike, and he was sort of nice to me. And as a matter of fact, he was nice in our brief interaction. And, you know, maybe this is something to bring up later, but you guys probably know that Blair White brought up how a lot of people that she knows don't exactly believe what it is that they say on, you know, their channels, or you know, people who are more high profile, who have actual shows on like, you know, more on television and more high profile places than YouTube. And it did make me wonder slightly about the quartering and if perhaps he fits into that, all of that somehow, because he was so accepting of you, and it seemed kind of in I don't know, in opposition to so much of the way he acts on his channel.
Yeah, well, just dropped my phone. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. We didn't really interact too much more the rest of the weekend, I suppose. But yeah, that whole the whole first party thing was a bit kind of odd, I suppose. But I mean, like I say, I really enjoyed myself, and it was probably because I was very drunk. But you know.
All right, so are we ready then to move on to like the first part of the day? Now, I wasn't there and I don't really know the timetable. So did you guys get there like at the start of the con? I guess we can maybe start with Vadim.
It was kind of
wait, I'm going to go back to Vadim. I'm going to go back to
Can I just say one thing real quick? Sure. Yeah. So the thing that I realized about in the morning, I realized that I hadn't changed my clock to Central Time, so I was an hour back. Or, you know, so it was saying that it was 11 o'clock, but it was actually only 10 o'clock. And so I realized that probably for the night before as well, I probably arrived at the party like an hour early. And then the next day I went and yeah, so that was kind of silly. I probably turned up at the party being like, hey guys, and everyone's like, hey, it's not time yet or something. So, you know, that was kind of silly.
Okay. Yeah, so basically who was up first in terms of Vadim? Was yours earlier in the day?
Yes, mine was first.
Okay.
And I had no illusions going into this that this was going to be kind of somewhat of a right-wing, for lack of a better term, circle jerk. And I'm not just talking about the dynamic on stage. I'm talking about also just the audience that we had there and whatnot. So I was not the least bit surprised. I mean, the coordinators of MythCon like to kind of portray it, and perhaps they even think that it's this very even, you know, kind of matchup, and it just wasn't. I mean, I'm totally cool with it, but if anyone watches the discussion that I had, by the way, is up on the Creationist Cat channel for anyone who wants to watch it. It is really clear. It was a dog pile. It was including the moderator. It was 4-on-1 with me, and then the audience, who was really kind of at my throat through a lot of it. In spite of all of that, I did feel like I dealt with it as pretty much as well as I could. I came there because I had a few things that I really wanted to get off my chest and convey to a group of people. Really, my things were aimed at people who call themselves skeptics and who also call themselves either centrists or liberals. In the YouTube quote unquote skeptic / atheist community. And I use the word quotes because obviously I don't feel like a lot of these people are legitimately skeptical. And my overall point was just that, like, really there's, you know, I wouldn't mind if these people gave as much scrutiny to the right as they do the left, but it's pretty clear to anyone who's not inside that bubble that that's exactly what they or that they do not do that. They, you know, that there's this just crazy focus on SJWs, which in, you know, Trump's America, I think is all the more ridiculous. I mean, it's already an overblown kind of problem. I don't believe it's as anywhere near the problem that they think it is. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't some people out there who do it wrong and who don't advocate for social justice or various, you know, various what's the word, issues that maybe every now and then they shoot themselves in the foot with the tactics that they take. I certainly agree with that. And then there are elements of the left that, or not elements of the left, but that there are issues that I have called out. And the entire time I was kind of strawmanned as someone who is incapable of doing so. And the audience at a certain point cheered wildly when I brought up the fact that people who once called themselves skeptics are embracing people like Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder, and the mere mention of those people got like huge hollers from the audience. To which I said, "Fuck that guy!"
Thank you.
In particular, to Steven Crowder. Again, it was really interesting because I felt
Vadim,
yes.
Vadim, please marry me.
Okay. I accept your hand.
You and Chrisiousity
Hey!
my wives.
All right.
Yeah, polygamy, we're okay with that as long as it's consensual and adults.
What about me? What am I, chopped liver?
You can be my harem, absolutely.
I'm a kind of a modern, forward-thinking guy. So I'd like to bring up two things that occurred while on the panel. Actually, no, three things, okay? First of all, I want to say that to anyone who's watching it, please keep in mind that, there's all these people and everyone has to get a say. There were undoubtedly things that were said and that were said in relation to me that I simply could not respond to. And one thing that I found really horrible that David Smalley, who was sitting next to me, said, he mentioned something about how we're just expected to believe the accuser in rape accusations or something like that. And I think I'm kind of paraphrasing incorrectly. He basically put out a straw man that that made it sound like those on the left who advocate for, or who just want to these people's stories to be heard and investigated properly, that that we just will any claim will just wholeheartedly buy and stand behind these people no matter what. No, of course we want to see the evidence and whatnot. It's just, I think you guys all understand where I'm coming from about how that's a very common misrepresentation of people who
totally yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should treat people's stories as if they're telling the truth, and we should treat them and investigate them as if on what they say happened, like look to see if it happened. We always start with the presumption of innocence for the accused, but we have no presumption of anything for the person making the accusation. And all we're asking is treat it seriously.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And he and I believe I have to watch it again. I haven't watched it since it occurred, but I believe that elicited a lot of applause from the crowd, and I thought that was kind of
it's that nonsense of like thinking that they like conflating the idea of believing someone when they make an accusation and getting rid of due process. That they conflate the whole thing. They're like, you just want to throw all the men in jail because all men are rapists and all that sort of shit. No, it's nonsense.
So I bring that up for two reasons. One, because I found that just like a horrible straw man. And then two, for those of you who watch it, I just want you to keep in account that it's sort of like I was there to say, I had a lot to say, and it's sort of like you have to do a cost-benefit analysis of what you can chime in on, what you can't. And there are things that I let go that I wish that I hadn't, but when all is said and done, I could only say so much. So the two other things that I want to bring up, and it's really funny because Quillette was there covering the whole thing, and this guy Andy Nago was basically live tweeting, and everything that he tweeted, not just in my in every panel that I saw, he was selectively tweeting out things that made it look like it was just, the left was getting their ass handed to them. And I felt like, given all that was against me. I felt like I did a pretty decent job, and then there were times where I was really, you know, assertive and standing up to these people. Yet he tweeted out both the time, this one time that Greg said to me that I used the term conservative or Republican as a slur, and that I had used it against him. And I couldn't speak to what he was talking about, because I asked him, I said, well, what tweet in particular are you talking about? I went back, and maybe it's there, but I did a search and I could not find one that fit into that category. It's possible that he misconstrued something that I said. Now, what I maybe had said is I have kind of chided people who I don't believe are as centrist or are as left-leaning as they claim to be, and I make fun of them, you know, for that, and I'll call them, like, you know, conservative or Republican, but it's not, you know, it's not really what he pointed out was not, I'm pretty confident, what I actually do in my tweets. But I couldn't speak to it because
Greg,
what
I'll say about Greg is he's one of these people who said, oh, well, if you think I'm right wing, well, wait and see what I get up to, how I criticize Trump when he gets in. I've not heard a peep out of him.
Oh yeah, and then right after that, like a few months after that, he tweeted something out saying something to the effect of, oh, I never I never talk about American political figures, period. And it's sort of like, well, what the fuck is your entire feed leading up to the election about? You know,
exactly.
Because I actually did a search.
Consistently attacked Hillary Clinton throughout the campaign.
Say that again?
He consistently attacked Hillary Clinton throughout that campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. I did a search just to make sure. I did a search of his account and the words Trump, Hillary, and Clinton. And the worst stuff, for the most part, that he'd say about Trump until after the election, I mean, he really doesn't say that much after the election, is just like, oh, he's such a meme. Oh, he's so silly, you know, things like that. Whereas with Hillary, he was absolutely vicious to her. And he would say things like there was one that I saw that I just thought was ridiculous, where Hillary tweeted something that I completely agree with, where she pointed out Trump's you know, bias or just his bigotry, racism, I think is the word she actually used, towards immigrants when Trump said that, like, this judge who happened to be of I think either Mexican or some maybe Spanish descent was the one presiding over a trial having to do with him, and he said that person should not be allowed to be a judge. And she said something to the effect of, I think this really says a lot about his racism. And what he chimed in with, it's not racism. Mexican is not a race. And it was just like, dude, is that really the hill that you're going to die on? I mean, like, clearly there's some sort of prejudice here, and you're just nitpicking over the word that is being used. That's not like, even if technically you're correct, then it's so not worth pointing out. And I think that exposes Greg's right-wing bias, or at least his desire to pander to right-wing people. So anyhow, there was
something that you brought up in the panel that I thought was really good, Vadim. There was a specific point you made about the focus on left-wing stuff, you know, from these sorts of people, the focus on quote unquote debunking or I would just say shitting on left-wing people, but, you know, versus those on the right, and the idea that is an important thing to do when in reality the government is controlled exclusively by the right, and those are the people who craft policy and you know, kind of control the government, and that should be the thing that is more important and focused on, but it's not, and that's something you brought up, but it kind of just fell to the wayside. But I thought it was a very important point.
Well, thank you. I honestly, I think most of my substantial points were just kind of shrugged off. There was this whole thing. See, the thing is that we had this conversation before the actual talk on Skype, all of us, with the exception of the moderator, he couldn't make it. And we all agreed. I said to everyone, and I had spoken with the coordinators beforehand, and they agreed as well. I said that skepticism should be just as much a part of this as atheism, because it's part of the whole, it's part of the community, and it's, in my opinion, in some ways, a more substantial aspect of the argument. And so there were all these times where I was giving examples of the ways in which the majority of those in this YouTube, mostly YouTube community, are anything but skeptical. And I kept on getting met with, well, what does this have to do with atheism? And at a certain point, I was just like, are you guys kidding me? We all talked about this beforehand, and I'm only talking about what we agreed to talk about here. So that happened. And the last thing that I want to say real quickly is there was a moment, and I do want to say, I know that there are a lot of people who perhaps even, rightfully have some problems with Jacqueline Glenn for certain things that she's said, but I got along with her really well. I've gotten along with her well in the past. On the panel, she did this sort of gotcha moment. I said to myself before getting on stage, I'm not going to, I could easily craft some gotcha moments for these people, but I'm not going to do that because, one, I have bigger fish to fry. I have things that I want to talk about that do not involve kind of like petty interpersonal stuff. And then also I realized that because of the fact that the audience was not on my side, that I'd probably just lose them if I did something like that. But Jacqueline Glenn at a certain point brought up, I had actually, when she made this video where she talked about how she had recently become more receptive to the right wing, not in terms of her actual beliefs, but in terms of like dialoguing with them and stuff. I had some questions and concerns with this video, and I sent it to her unlisted. And the reason why I sent it to her unlisted is because I know that people have the propensity to look at things like that as like drama, and I didn't want people to think that I was like picking a fight with her. It was out of respect that I sent it to her. So she made it sound like, you sent this video unlisted. She made it sound, in my opinion, like it was sort of like that was a devious thing on my part, like sending it unlisted. And she asked why I was so, quote, triggered by it. And I should have said, what I should have said in the moment is, I don't understand why valid criticism of your video should be considered being triggered. But I honestly, I couldn't speak to what she was saying because I knew that there was so much to unpack in that question, and we had to speak in these quick sound bites. And I just said to her, look, I just know that I do not have time to really give that the adequate response. And so it kind of ended up looking, that was another thing that Andy Nago tweeted out, saying like, Jacqueline Glenn confronts Vadim Newquist about sending him a video, something like that. And it made me look bad. And like the audience was like, ooh. But honestly, I mean,
yeah, her saying triggered got a big response. That's another thing that's been pointed out is she says triggered and the audience is like, whoa. So skeptical. Okay.
And honestly, like, I don't know. I mean, again, I like her and I don't really take it that personally, but I feel like to those who are really open-minded who watch the video, I think that it made her look worse to bring that up than it was. I don't know. Others may look at it differently, but that I think we need to move on to other people. I don't want to kind of like.
I want to talk a couple things that Vadim was saying. I agree. I felt like she went in a time when really nobody was going for these sort of drama things, and every single one of us, we could talk all day about interpersonal dramas that one has with the other, or something that someone had said on Twitter. I think she was the only person that really felt like she needed to go there, and it wasn't appropriate. From my perspective, like, what are you supposed to do? You can't like pull up a Twitter conversation from 6 months ago while you're on stage and, hash this out right now when you have a panel of 5 people. So I agree, and I thought Vadim did a great job. I thought he did fantastic on, especially considering how many people were there. You know, he really was the only voice countering this sort of message that everybody else had. So he had his hands completely full, trying to counter everybody at once, all by himself. But yeah, I mean, I thought that he was clear, he was concise, he made good points, he kept it, you know, there were a couple jokes because he's a comedian, but he kept it pretty cool and, you know, on the line. So I want to say that.
Yeah. Honestly, like it was funny because a lot of the people who, I guess this is the last thing that I want to say, but a lot of the people who were shouting at me the loudest, a lot of them came up to me afterwards. And I mean, these people are like, a lot of them just, you know, MAGA hats abounded at this get together, and a lot of these people were, you know, Trump voters and whatnot, who came up to me but surprisingly, I was not expecting this. Surprisingly, a lot of them came up to me and said things to the effect of, "Hey man, you know, I don't agree with anything you say, but you really had balls, man, and you did a good job up there." So,
hang on,
you know,
I thought Justy was banned from the event. What was that?
yeah. Then they said logic. But seriously though, like, I mean, that was nice. I mean, of course they should agree with me because I was right about everything. But no, just kidding. But you know, actually, I do want to say one last thing. I'm sorry if I'm over talking, but it's sort of like, you know, I do not say this because I was like, you know, like just a debate ninja up there by any means. I could have done better. But one, I should have had more floor time because I was the dissenting opinion. I was the person. Everybody else was on the same page but me. So you know, I felt like I should have had a little more floor time because of that. And then also, like, I just what was the other point? Oh man, it was related to that. Maybe I'll remember it later. Sorry, it just kind of slipped out of my brain.
No worries.
But yeah. No, I remember what it is. Is that a lot of people who you know, who just are completely opposed to me have said things like, "Oh, you sucked up there, and you made that conversation boring." I'm sorry, assholes. Those of you who say that, like, whether or not you think I did a good job, that conversation would have been so boring without me. And again, it's not because I'm like some, you know, master debater or anything like that. It's because I was the one who was generating the, like,
we agreed earlier.
We already agreed that you're a masturbator.
Yeah.
Okay, well, true. So yeah, I mean, like without my opposition there, that just would have been, I think, just it would have been a circle jerk. I'm sorry. You know, there was very little dissenting opinions besides mine, and I thought that that's what the event is supposed to be about, to kind of bring these opposing opinions together and have them, like, discuss. So there you go.
I think what you could do. I'm getting
I'm gonna mute myself.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That solves it. Right. But I think what we'll do is we're going to go to Chrisiousity and Mike and have you guys talk about your panel. And we'll do the sort of like, Chrisiousity, if you don't want to take the full like 7 minutes, if you want to talk like 4 or 5, and then Michael can talk for 4 or 5, and then you guys can talk together. And then
I did want to talk a little bit about what happened with Dave Smalley.
Okay.
Because
can I just finish? Sorry, this quickly. The setup.
Sure.
I'll just explain the setup and then I'll let you do this and then you can go right into your bit. So if you guys do your panel, then maybe we can do a speed round on the other panels if you saw them, but maybe like just 2 or 3 minutes on each. So that way we have time for Vadim stuff and your stuff, and we don't really, you know, worry about the other stuff so much in detail. So, and then we can talk about the after party. So that was what I wanted to say. And I'll let you do your Smalley thing and then you can talk about what you want to talk about.
All right. So, so when Vadim's panel came on, Smalley did sort of do his sort of grandstanding or it seemed to be grandstanding. Well, I'm not going to just believe you because you say you've had a sexual assault. And, you know, the entire, this MAGA crowd is just, you know, cheering for him like he's the great fucking hero for making this brave and courageous stance. And, you know, so I got up and I flipped him off and I marched out of the thing. Like with my one little finger up, just like fuck this, you know, and I almost left. Like I got out and I was like, I should never have fucking come here. What the fuck was I thinking? Why am I here? I am so done with this new atheist, casually misogynistic and very ignorant stance that they take about women and sexual assault and how they approach it. I'm done with it. I'm sick of it. I don't have any like, I'm not even playing anymore, bitches. You know? Like the time when I would like hear you on this one and want to have this whole conversation about, well, I can understand and blah, 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 blah. Fuck you. Yeah, no, I'm done. So anyway.
Can I quickly, before I have to say, the most ridiculous thing I think that I've seen in a long time is the person who introduced David Smalley making reference to the drapes in the curtains not matching or matching. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you even thinking about introducing somebody like that at a conference? He's supposed to moderate. And now everybody's thinking about what's between his legs.
It's very, it was such an awkward beginning. I was sitting with the Messianic Maniac, right?
Who's in the chat, by the way, I think.
Oh, hi.
Sure. EMM,
right? And we were hanging out, and like, as this thing begins, first of all, it's just this shitlord circle jerk of how brave and intellectually wonderful they are, and the intellectual dark web is great, and you know, and aren't they just so brave and smart and skeptical? And I'm just sitting there like, oh God, shoot me. And but you know, you're sitting there politely waiting, and then the first thing that happened, Dave Smalley also did a bit where he made fun of Thomas Smith, which it's just an ugly thing to do from my point of view. Like it just starts things off on the wrong note. And I don't know if people know about what Thomas Smith what happened with him before or not, but like, you know, he had left at a certain point. And personally, different people can have different opinions on that, but I'm very grateful to him for sort of holding the line and saying, you know, there are some things that we debate and talk about, and there are some things that are just unacceptable. Like, you just don't fucking do them and then turn around and expect to be treated respectfully and decently. And like, it's just, you know, I mean,
that was the thing that came up a lot during the conference as well. People keep bringing up Thomas Smith and being like, oh, you know, I'm glad that there's like a real person debating Sargon this time, or you know, shit like that. And I was like, come on, man, you know.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't debate. Like one of the few things that I said when I came in was, you've got to tell Carl to stay the fuck away from me and don't talk to me. Like, I'm not there for that. And to me, he will always be the person that laughed the day of my friend's murder and at her being a feminist that was triggered for the last time. And I'll never, like, that's never going to not be the person that he is to me. So they can, like, I want nothing to do with him whatsoever, is my attitude toward that. I mean, I know that I guess of all of us, I'm kind of coming off maybe as the bitch who like doesn't play, you know.
No, not.
But I mean, my hero. You need to do that. No, it's great.
But
I'm kind of not strong enough to do that. That's kind of, I mean, one of the reasons kind of why I suppose I was more friendly with people. It's more difficult for me to do that.
No, I don't. I just think that that's you. You are like just a very sunshiny, friendly person, and that's your nature.
Yeah, but you are as well. You are as well, and I appreciate how strong you are to stand up to that shit. You know, I mean,
I've had a lot of practice of just I gotten to a point.
You know? Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, I know how much of an awesome, loving, caring person you are, and I mean, it doesn't matter to other people. You know, if Carl doesn't think he thinks you're a bitch or whatever.
I hope he thinks I'm a bitch. If Carl doesn't think I'm a bitch, I have done something wrong. So
yeah, I mean, but that doesn't change.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
So quickly before we switch over,
if Carl thinks you're a bad person, that's
a badge of honor,
like a tour poster or the cover of a book or something. Definitely, that's an endorsement.
I think Vadim had a point you wanted to jump in with to agree or something.
Oh, I just wanted to say in terms of Carl. I mean, maybe this is more for later, but. You know, if he had done, or rather, if Thomas Smith had done 1/10 of the shit that Carl pulled in his discussion with Richard Carrier, then I mean, like Carl was the caricature of Thomas Smith, because Thomas Smith there was not really anything wrong with what he did. You know, he got emotional, but how could you not? And you know, he was just saying things like shut up the entire time, and it was just like it's amazing the double standard, because like he was the caricature of Thomas Smith on steroids in that discussion.
Okay, thank you for the preview. I want to get into that juicy bit. Definitely.
I'll mute myself.
Okay. So Chrisiousity, you were talking about the panel? Oh, you're muted. Still. We can't hear you. Did she have to leave? Michael?
Hi.
Okay, you're still there. Thank God. I don't know what happened to Chrisiousity. Do you want to talk about the panel while she's muting herself?
Is the music in the background a problem?
No, we can deal.
Okay, that's cool. I'm just in a subway at the moment. So. Yeah, the panel was good. I was glad that Chris was there, because it kind of balanced it out a lot more. But it was still very much. I mean, it was the same in Vadim's case, and you know, we're very much in a minority when it came to the audience. You know, all Roaming Millennial had to do was say, like, she didn't even say anything. Like, there was a specific point during the time, I remember it very specifically, where I said something, and then she started to reply, but like she hadn't even got to the substance of what her reply was, and the audience were, you know, woo, yeah, woo, clapping and hooting and hollering, and you know, there was just nothing like that for us, you know. So it made the dynamic was very tricky, because you know, like I say, the audience was generally against us, Mike, but it was good.
Mike, what's literally, I sorry, I just wanted to cut in and say, literally, like they were looking for excuses to cheer. She could have just said, like, in response to long, excellent points you guys made, she could have just said, "You," and they would have been like, "Woo, yeah!" So that was ridiculous.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree. It made it rather tricky, because you had to really think about the words that you were saying, and then towards the end of it, I kind of gave up and just just started trolling the audience, because there was something I said in particular that elicited some sort of negative response, to which I replied, "Oh, sorry, did I hurt your poor white man sensibilities?" And everyone, you know, kind of. You know, I thought that was kind of funny, but
I'm racist. I'm racist against white people.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I said, you know, it's okay because I'm racist towards white people, and I just got that out of the way. Oh, that's right, because there was a dude in the audience who said something, and I responded with something about white men, and that's when David Spawley came to me and was like, he asked me a question. He's like, so can we touch on this for a second? Why did you assume that that he's that the person that said that was a white guy. And I said, it's because I'm racist towards whites. And he was like, oh, okay, so we can just move on then.
Can I say, though, let me say that, I mean, the odds in that crowd of him being anything else, like, we looked like, it looked like, you know, CPAC or a mayonnaise salesman convention out there.
I was going to ask about the demographics, like what percentage, because
I'm sure there were a couple of I'm sure that there were a couple of black people, but when I say a couple, I'm not like that's about what I saw the whole entire day.
And the aggregate gender?
That was probably closer to, I would say 80-20 maybe, but it's hard to say, or like 75-25.
90-10 for white to non-white, and then 80-20 for men to women.
I think 90-10 might even be an underestimate. I really think it, like, most of the black people, most of the people of color I saw through the day, and of course you don't always know, it could well be that people have racial or demographic backgrounds that are not obviously apparent, but based on what I could see, it was strikingly pale. So that's just that. And I know that I upset Roaming Millennial because I did say something to that about the difficulty that they had finding any people of color for their intersectionality panel, about the difficulty they have.
And that was another time where she really, all she had to do was like raise her hands in the air, being like, what about me? She didn't even say anything. And the whole audience was like, oh, woo!
Which, and I don't want to like...
We lost Michael. Oops.
Bye, okay. Mike. I don't want to like take away from her identity, and I don't want to insult her or minimize any of her situation. But that just wasn't really what I was talking about. Like, I think that it is something that we should discuss, that they must have asked, I don't know how many people. Like, I know of at least 4 or 5 people personally that they asked who were just like, oh, no thanks.
Wasn't like, it she only got her spot because 2 white men dropped out?
Yes. So it was going to be otherwise it would have been just mayonnaise talking to mayonnaise. So sorry. I know that's how racist. I'm so racist.
Chrissy totally, I mean, Mike was really formidable as well, but Chrissy definitely dominated the conversation. And I mean, I mean this both in terms of the points made, and then also in terms of just, because we all know that debate isn't, at the end of the day, isn't just about, you know, facts. It's also about just kind of charisma and kind of asserting yourself. And in both of those ways, Chrissy and Mike just dominated the whole thing. And
of course, Chrissy dominated. Yeah, the Boston girl.
And another thing that I would like to throw in real quick is that Clay Rutledge was there. Clay in the beginning, I thought like, this guy seems like he might be a decent person to kind of like a challenging debater, but because he started out by saying like, well, I come from academia, and I analyze these things with, I analyze data and empirical blah 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 blah, and I'm sorry, I'm just not an academic, so I can't like really paraphrase well.
but that's totally what that. Yeah,
that's really all he said. Like after that, he barely said anything else. And I was just waiting for him to like kind of throw out the supposed data points and stuff that he was talking about, that he made it sound like would back up his point of view, but he never did it.
Yeah,
it was very weird. Like the first time he talked, or it was one of the first times he talked where he said, yeah, like I'm a university professor and I deal with this stuff all the time, and I work with data and all this sort of stuff. And it sounded, it sounded very self-aggrandizing. It was kind of an odd thing to say. And so I made a quip about how, I sit in my bedroom and make stupid YouTube videos all the time. And then the only point I remember him making, and this was a point of contention, is because he said, we were talking about, I was talking about like bringing, different women's voices into the movement, so the idea of intersectionality being that in the second wave, it was very white woman focused. And so hearing voices from different, trans women and black women and all that sort of stuff. And he made some point about how injustice happens in other countries, to which I replied, yeah, but that doesn't mean we can't, worry about injustice here. And he said, I didn't say that. And the audience is like clapping and clapping and clapping because he didn't say that. To which I didn't really I was like, oh, okay. But I'm like, why bring it up? Why even bring it up if not to say that, what the hell's the point otherwise? If you're going to say, okay, there's injustice elsewhere, look at what about this country and that country? If you're going to bring, what's the point of bringing it up if not to derail the conversation? So I felt kind of about that, and then
there
we
are
kind of
some
moved on.
things that people should know about Clay Rutledge, okay? Because he is an academic, and he's one of the main reasons I agreed to go. Because, I do look at these things strategically. To me, I did win the debate, but I didn't. But Roaming Millennial certainly was perfectly fine. Like there was nothing that ruffled her feathers, and she doesn't have a hard job. All she has to say is, well, we agree racism is bad, but you also have to take into account that, we need to all be together and egalitarian. And it's like these sorts of like halfway this, six of this, half a dozen of another. They're just, they don't mean anything, but they sound good. So her brand is
and
fine.
it panders to the audience, right? I mean, that's what the audience is there to hear.
All right, but when it came to, so she is who she is when she got there. She is who she is when she left. She's a person who's sort of up and coming, I think, right wing. She's very religious, and so there's all that, and I have those concerns, but. Of Clay Rutledge, who writes frequently for publications like the National Review and Quillette. He's associated with the John Templeton Foundation, which is a group that funds research into the intersections of religion and science and developing moral characters and the virtues of the free market. Richard Dawkins has criticized them quite a lot because they're creationist, climate change deniers, and they throw out a lot of agenda-driven prizes and funding for certain things. He's a member of the affiliated with the James G. Martin Center for Academic Renewal, which is a group in North Carolina. Again, all these groups are very, very rich, very right-wing. That one is a think tank that is responsible for shutting down poverty centers, hiking up tuition fees, putting caps on financial aid, going out against things like diversity in schools. It's a group that wants to see the French communists taken out and Ayn Rand put in. Multiculturalism is tossed out because we need to talk about traditional perspectives and the benefits of capitalism. And in fact, they would love to have a total overhaul of the university system. So I think, I hope that people know that when I decided to go, it's because I was like, oh, I can't just, you can't just let people like this have the mic without a challenge. And you can't, because they're going to say stuff like they did say, here's this guy, he's a member of a group that shut down poverty centers, and his line is, well, it's not just race, it's class. It's like, and it doesn't matter because you hate them both, right? Like, no matter what, they're screwed with you.
Can I just say, when you listed off all of those issues and those names and those topics, I was just like, damn, like, you know your stuff. Wow. You know your stuff about this guy.
Well, I think he was surprised because I talked about some of, his papers and his interests, and I'm not trying to bash him. He seemed nice enough on a personal level, and none of this is personal with me. Like, I don't have personal animus against people, but if you're going to be the kind of person that shuts down and makes it harder for poor Black people in North Carolina to go on to school, then fuck you, is all I have to say to that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
God bless you and the devil take you, you little bastard. So, well, that's what my Graham used to say. So, but like, that is, I do think that we have to be aware that there's something of a right-wing bait and switch that goes on. And I am betting, like, so you're going to an atheism conference where these people who are from creationist groups or who are affiliated with them are going to be speaking, and you're not going to be asking him about that. You're going to ask him about check his notes, intersectionality, which he knows nothing about because he doesn't, his expertise is nostalgia and religion and why people have, faith, and faith is good for you. Like, so like that, there's something very wrong with that whole thing, but these people, they're going to put forward not their own ideas because nobody wants those ideas. If you tell people, well, we're really hoping that we can hike up your tuition fees because the problem with colleges today is they don't cost enough. Like, that's the issue. And so they're not going to do that, but they can bitch about, college students with blue hair all day long and how mean and divisive they are. And as long as there's nobody to sort of tackle that and to say, hey, wait a second, and if I had more of an ability, I would have liked to have gone into that more. I would have liked to have challenged him. But, for one thing, he, like you said, he didn't talk. Like, I get the sense that they would love somebody like Clay Rutledge to be the next Jordan Peterson, but not someone who cries over Pinocchio and is sort of out of it half the time, because he's got his shit together at least. But he's not necessarily, or it doesn't seem like he's all that. He's a person that really wants to be in front of other people and whatever. Like, he's kind of iffy on that. So we'll see. But leftists, keep your damn eyes open.
Kristi, did you by any chance have a moment to speak with his wife?
No, I didn't.
Because it's actually funny, his wife, I believe, holds several of the same thoughts, although she seemed to be more left-leaning than he is in certain respects. And I thought, because I had a pretty good conversation with her, and there was lots of areas of disagreement, but I actually think that she would have been a way better person to have up there than he was, because she's not an awkward speaker like he is. And she comes from, she left academia because she was sort of, she agreed with, according to her, she agreed with several aspects of feminism, yet she sharply disagreed with others, and she felt like she was expected to toe the line. That's according to her. And I don't know. I as I was watching him, I was like, why is his wife not up there? She would be a much more lively debater and probably, do a better job than he. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that in. Also, just real quickly, you were talking earlier about, like, or actually, no, you and I talked about how the panel topics are kind of set up in a way against the left, and it's like it's titled "What is the impact of intersectionality?" But would they ever have a panel that is, what is the impact of anti-social justice? or some. Of course, they wouldn't. They never would. But it's sort of like if it really was a balanced talk about those things, you'd have at least one or two panels where that was sort of like the question being asked, rather than like putting the left on the defense.
Well, it's like when during your panel, Vadim, they had the question and answer thing, right? And Schoenhead got up there and asked about how feminism is a religion, and my immediate response to that is, have you looked at anti-feminism at all? The cult-like mentality of the followers of people like Jordan Peterson and Stefan Molyneux and Sargon of Akkad, and the way that the sort of thinking, like the conspiracy theory way of thinking about and assessing claims and things like that gets perpetuated by these people. I mean, Carl, he puts up this demeanor of, rational skeptic, but engages in this ridiculous conspiracy theory thinking all the time, and that's quite common in the anti-feminist, anti-SJW kind of thing. And that, and then put on top of that, this affinity towards people like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, who are all fundamentalist Christians. How could you possibly get up there and say feminism is a religion while ignoring all of that stuff? It boggles my mind.
Ben Shapiro is Jewish.
Yes.
All right, so guys, I think now like I said before, we'll move into kind of like a speed round. I don't know how many of the panels that you saw, but again, could you just maybe like throw a name of a panel out and just give like a 30-second or 1-minute impression, and then maybe a quick discussion, and we'll move on.
The transgender panel, I saw a brief amount of that. Theron Mayer is great. Like she sat there and basically called out Blair's transphobia and the perpetuation of such things. Not by name, but like perfectly encapsulated it and damned it there on stage, while like obviously not looking at Blair. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's talking about this. So I thought that was great. I think there was a point
where just because this is in relation to what you're saying, I think there was literally a point where she said, a lot of people hate Blair. And she said, followed it up with something like, and I understand why, so something
yeah. Like you said, Vadim, I think she was kind of not really wanting to be there, because I went up to her afterwards as
Michael,
well. And I was like, hey,
I said 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry. Continue, go.
Yeah, so Vadim, you gave some impressions. Any other ones quickly?
I mean, again, I think I already talked about Kristi and Mike's enough.
The Blair one.
The Sargon one was an absolute farce. It was. I have significant problems with Richard Carrier. I even brought up in a conversation with the MythCon guys, I brought up the fact that I did not like having them represent me because. Really, because of the lawsuit that is occurring, and I urge Mario Quadracci to rethink all of that. But I in spite of that, I have to kind of call it like it is and say that Carrier did a very good job of just kind of calling out Sargon's bullshit. He was belittling.
Sorry. We were just going to do the trans one.
Round.
Yeah, just to do the trans.
You know what? I didn't watch enough of it to say. I watched about 5 minutes of it from the sidelines, and Sargon was standing right next to me, and he asked me how's the cat doing, and I said very well, thank you, and then I kind of wanted to say, you miserable, horrible bastard, but I didn't.
It's good that
I left that to Mike, who did tell him to fuck off the day after.
Okay.
There's some really great video of that. But yeah, I'll just say that I agree with what Mike is saying about Theron.
Okay, Kevin.
What? Oh no, I was just going to do a silly joke. Please continue.
All right, Chrisiousity, did you see the panel?
I did see that one, and I thought it was probably the nicest panel of the night. It was the most where people were really talking to each other, And there was a sense of sisterhood on the stage, even though they clearly have three very different perspectives, like entirely. But they sort of were able to sort of talk about it, and they did shots and, you know, held hands. And so I thought that was overall like a really positive sort of vibe that was coming off of it. Brittany Simon did a fantastic job of moderating and keeping everything sort of on track. So I
think Brittany was my favorite person at the conference.
Yeah, she's a doll. I have to go.
Yeah, no problem.
Because I've got shit to do. I want to say Dave Smalley has agreed to come on my little channel and talk about the things that he said about sexual assault and have a conversation with me. So hopefully that will happen next Friday.
Cool.
Wow.
So I don't know if I'm looking forward to it or if I'm going to be shoving things into my eye, but we'll see. He was quite gracious to us the whole time I was there. He was a very gracious person. And polite.
I had a good chat to him as well. Yeah,
I agree.
I actually the first interaction that I had with him.
Sorry, Chrissy's going to leave. Sorry. So I just want to say I still want to get your reaction to the Carrier Benjamin debate if you saw it, but it will have to be another time. So
yeah, I have a lot to say, and unfortunately,
I
gotta run. And
no worries. We'll do hang out on your channel, or you can come on mine.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Can't wait.
All right, sounds good.
We get it. You guys are YouTubers, okay? Jeez.
Okay, catch you later, my dear.
Bye, Chris.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Okay, so this is a speed round, remember, guys. Another panel that you saw that you want to comment on. Anyone see Karen Garst? Oh, sorry.
I didn't actually see many others, to be honest. I kind of hung out in the foyer a lot. Me and Chris went and hung out with Gwen Nofear and Laura, their girlfriend, for lunch. You know, so we missed about an hour and a half.
Okay.
Of the panels and stuff. So I think we missed the Vadim. You saw the Black Lives Matter one, though, right?
I saw a decent amount of that. I thought that I apologize, but I forget her name, the young lady who spoke. I felt like she brought up a lot of great points. She definitely dominated, although I was expecting it to be a complete blowout. And even though some black guy did not have necessarily facts and things to just like in terms of just presentation and kind of, you know, just seeming like he was in assertive and whatnot. He did a good job. Like, to those who buy his side of things, he, I'm sure, came across very well. The one thing that I actually disagreed with her on, you know, maybe some people here disagree with me, but she actually, for those who don't know, she was actually one of those people who famously got up on stage during the Bernie rally in the 2016 election cycle, and she basically forced him off stage, and she referred to that as something that was really positive, that was really good for you know, for social justice and yada yada. And I don't know, I disagree with her. I think that kind of those sorts of things, especially since I do believe Bernie was an ally to Black Lives Matter, I think things like that actually kind of do not endear people to Black Lives Matter, and I am totally like a supporter of that movement. So that's one way that I disagreed with her, but overall she did a very fine job. Yeah, so that's all I can say about that.
Yeah,
I didn't watch a lot of it. I watched maybe 20 minutes of it.
Okay. Yeah, and then I guess the last one is if you guys saw the panel with Carrier and Carl Benjamin, because I am curious about that. And you started to talk about it, and you've referred to it a little bit. Michael, before I ask you, did you see that one or not?
I saw brief amounts. I didn't really want to listen to Carl talk for an hour. So
fair enough. So I guess Vadim, if you can give us the story on.
I had no desire to watch it, but then I was outside and somebody was like, "Hey, you guys got to see this. Carl is getting his ass kicked," and so So my friend and I were like, okay, we got to see this, I guess. So we went in, and yeah, it was pretty brutal. It was really interesting because the thing is that he certainly had control over the conversation. He was like a barking dog, but Carrier, again, like, I just want to say one last time, I have problems with him, but he was belittling him the entire time. And when I say that he was belittling him, it wasn't like he was saying like, oh, screw you, fatso. He was, it was all in tone. He was playing it very well. Like Sargon would just say something that was inherently ridiculous, and he'd laugh it off, and he'd be like, wait a second, are you actually saying this? And it really made Carl look very small. And over the course, if you watch it, you can see Carl hunching over more and more because his confidence was clearly diminishing, and the more his confidence diminished, the more he'd bark. And it was really funny to see. And once again, I have to say that if Thomas Smith had done 1/10 of what he did on that stage, like he got all this shit for last year, but it would have been way worse. And it's a total double standard. Carl did end up apologizing for it because he knew that he looked bad. There were people who came up to me afterwards who were fans of his, who were like, man, I love Sargon of Akkad, but I don't know what that bullshit was. Like, he lost a lot of his fans. Of course, there were his minions that will just yap for him no matter what there. But a lot of people totally just caught, who normally would not, caught like how full of shit he was. And it was really fascinating. At a certain point, I could not watch the whole thing. At a certain point, we both had our fill. We were just. There's only so much of that guy that I can take. And so I did leave in like the last 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. Sounds like a rope-a-dope strategy.
Yeah, I recommend people watching it. I know everyone here is probably on the same page with that guy and probably does not enjoy Richard Carrier much either. But like, the dude got his ass handed to him and looked like a fool.
I've been looking for that video. Where is it?
They're uploading pretty much one a day, and they're doing it in order of the actual shows. And his was last, so that's probably going to be up in like 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
Did you see?
Sorry, we're getting a lot of echo from yours.
Okay, I'm turning my mic off.
Thanks.
Did you see Sargon's like post MythCon talk thing? Because he says in that he didn't, like, his thing was that he didn't he'd hoped that there was going to be a certain kind of discussion, and it didn't go that way. And so he says, oh, next year I hope they find another person who can actually come on and talk about the stuff that he wants to. I don't know, he felt like it sounded like he thought that he was fine in the discussion, and that it was just another kind of blowout that didn't really yield anything.
It's the total MAGA fucking Trumpian bullshit. Never admit defeat. It's almost like the Black Knight from the Holy Grail, where he's literally your arms off. Come at me, bro. Come at me.
I can speak to this a little bit, what Mike is talking about, because like in his total garbage, but in his apology, which I think was worthless, and I'll explain why, he said that like Carrier basically agreed with him, and Carrier agreed with him on one minor.
That's right.
But he agreed with him on one trivial point, which is what happened was that Carl made this, of course, this straw man version, this sinister straw man of what social justice theology supposedly is. And Sargon kept on demanding that Richard Carrier talk about that. But Richard Carrier was like, look, that exists, and that sort of thing I denounce, but I'm here to talk about the genuine, what real social justice when it's done right. And, and they could never get to that point because Carl just refused to move on beyond that point. So Carl, he apologized, but at the same time, he made it sound like Richard Carrier agreed with him and that, like, for that reason, that he sort of won the debate. And it was nonsense.
Carl wants to go there and talk about how bad, blue-haired, crazy, censoring free speech, feminist social justice people are, I suppose. And he hasn't got there yet. And that's what he wants to do.
I have a prediction, and I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, the only reason is because he realizes that it's easy Google AdSense money, that all he has to do is upload that and he'll get a certain amount of money for it. But I would bet you that he is not going to upload it because it makes him look that bad. But we'll see.
Yeah, he had a really, really bad week, I think, around MythCon with the newspaper articles and his utter.
Oh, yeah.
So, and also his whole fight with Medicare was leading up to that as well. So I just want to say I am so waiting for that debate to be uploaded. I'm going to pop popcorn. I'm going to get all comfy. Yeah, Kevin.
Kristi, you don't know what it's like in the trenches of the culture war.
No.
Do you know how many people? Do you know how many people died on the first day of the culture Somme? Jesus.
How many brave lives were lost
on
the C day?
Yeah.
I have to say, is my camera on now? Okay. I did get all of this liberalist literature.
Oh God.
Oh my God. Oh God. Yeah, I saw dudes with liberalist shirts.
But I'm sure it's brilliant.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty cringy.
That is pretty sad.
I will say that I was, Vadim said a while back, there were a lot of people that sort of came up and, oh, we don't agree with you, but it's great that you could come out and speak, and I really appreciate you coming and talking. That I got a lot of that, to a point where I thought maybe just like in the back of my mind it was a hashtag bearing mafia thing, but because it was just so many like nice people being like really appreciative of us being there. But yeah, it was so and like on a personal level it was nice. On a a beliefs level it was kind of whatever, but there was a thing that was kind of cool. They had this quote unquote debate corner, which was out in the foyer. The guy who was running it, he would bring in two people from just, you could say, I want to do this thing, and he would give you topics and you have a little back and forth about it. And I got to have this debate where I had to debate the thing that I didn't agree on. Like, so it was to do with like taking offense or giving offense. And I had to argue that being offensive was like a net good in human existence or some shit like that. To be offensive is a good thing. And so I had to argue that. And it was actually quite fun. I liked it.
And what happened? Yeah. Who won the debate?
Oh, we just had again, it wasn't really like a win or loss thing. Like I'd say a bunch of stuff, and then the other guy would counter with his thing that he didn't agree with either. He agreed, like, so I was arguing like the opposite of what I would believe, and he was arguing the opposite of his belief. And then the guy who was like moderating would kind of put in some questions occasionally, and we had an interesting discussion. It was fun.
Oh, so that was a good thing. So moving on, can we get a quick summary of anything interesting at the after party you guys want to bring up? I don't know. I guess.
The woman, what was her name? Angel, who was on the transgender panel. She had a great voice.
Oh, did we lose Michael?
This whole what's that? Sorry,
we lost you for a second. You're back.
Oh, I'm here. They wanted to, because Greg and June had got engaged, and so they wanted to. Angel wanted to sing a song for them, and so they were kind of talking in the hallway, and I was like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" And they were like, "Oh, we want to sing I Will Always Love You, but the band doesn't know it. Do you want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I ended up playing that song for them, which was kind of fun because the guitar was really nice and I liked it. And otherwise, I met two girls who were kind of nice, and I kind of hung out with them. Me and Chris and Vadim these two girls kind of hung out for a lot of the night and just kind of chatting. Oh, and TMM was there as well, the Messianic Messiah guy.
Yeah, and also Sophane and Pat, who were
Sophane and Pat. Oh, they were great.
Yeah,
they were so great. Yeah, I liked those guys. Yeah.
Did you ever get to do your song, your beat thing for Sargon?
No, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't really interact with him at all. The one time I interacted with him like at all was kind of forced upon me because I walked into the backstage area. Like to get to the green room, you had to go into the backstage and then down to the green room. And I walked into the backstage area, and it was it was very dark because it was backstage, and I just come from the outside, so I couldn't really see anything. And I heard this voice, and there was a person there, and it was like, "Hey, Michael, I just wanted to say hi." And a hand came out, and I shook it. Then I was like, "Holy crap, it's Carl!" And it just kind of got sprung on me, and so I had a brief interaction with him and then left.
Did you do it for
next time, what's that?
Did you do it for anyone while you were there?
No, I didn't.
Did you want to do it now?
Oh, I can't remember it.
Oh, okay.
I can link it to you though. It's there. I know that the last rhyme is that the contents of his brain could not fill an old Nintendo cartridge. He's human garbage. That's yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I got to say fuck you, Carl, on camera, so that was kind of fun.
You did.
Good.
You did.
Vadim,
you got to call Jordan Peterson Lobster Boy in front of his fans.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I was glad that I did.
Yeah, I really wanted to get a that famous picture of Lacey Green and Sargon
where she's cuddling on him.
Yeah, I wanted to do a recreation where he was kneeling and standing right next to me and kind of like looked like he was about to cry, but that unfortunately didn't come into fruition. As far as impressions of the party, it was a fun time. There was, in all disclosure, there was a CC fan there who baked me a cookie with something kind of fun in it.
Aw.
And so
that's right. I forgot about that. Oh yes.
So I had that. I was feeling pretty mellow during most of the the party. Right. I spoke with a lot of people who again felt very differently from me, and it's interesting, like there were a lot of there were some young people who I spoke to who were very just turned off by, I guess, left-wing culture in general, because I think it's just a trend right now, and they really did seem to kind of like want to like hear me out, and people kept on like saying like, oh, you're so much more reasonable than all this, and it's like, what, if you really listen to these people that you think are unreasonable, you'd realize that they're, for the most part, like 90% of them are every bit as reasonable as I am. Like
Steve Jobs was brought up more than
people
once.
Have gotten painted with a broad brush and and demonized, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I don't know if I have anything else other really special to say about the after party. I mean, it was crazy, it was fun. It was interesting learning that what's her face, Roaming Millennial, can play the guitar. And I didn't know that she had that talent. And yeah, it was at a certain point it became a little bit of a blur because we had a lot of drinks and I had that cookie. So
yeah, I'm glad you guys had a good time at the party. I'm happy that you had a good time in Wisconsin. That makes me happy. But then reflecting back, like, do you feel that your participation was, and I'll maybe just put it in a dichotomous kind of framework, were you just there to be beaten up on so that they had applause lines and somebody there, a real person rather than just a straw man? Or do you guys feel that your participation was subversive and really was there to undermine and their echo chamber?
I think
go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I think their desire to have opposing views is genuine, at least for some of them. and because they're obviously very, like I say, we're very appreciative of us being there, but in practice, like on the panel and with the audience in general, it like Vadim said, is kind of a bit of a dog pile at certain times. I don't think I don't know if people were there to have their minds opened or anything like that, or to have their minds changed about anything. But I don't know. I feel like there's room for improvement. It is definitely a very right-wing centric kind of place, but I didn't feel beaten up or tokenized or anything like that. I was able to say what I liked, and I was able to speak my mind without whatever. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Vadim?
Yeah, I agree with Mike's assessment that ideally the guys who coordinated it would like to have an even playing field. However, the thing is that they have a very red-pilled bubble, and say for instance, they have Quillette. They believe that Quillette. These guys believe that Quillette is left center. Okay, and that's a joke. And so there were all these things that I think they just don't realize their bias. I don't think that the majority of the panels, and there were a couple of panelists that did not do this that I saw, but the majority of the panels that I saw, the moderators were throwing out things that were clearly that were clearly biased to the home team, if you will. And so to answer your question, you said, or were you there to be subversive? And I can't repeat the nice way that you put it, but I think that's how the effect that we actually had. I don't think that is necessarily what a lot of the people in the audience wanted, but that's what they got. They, like the majority of people who were there on our side, really, and I think that I could be. I think I have the ability to say, like, if somebody like kind of did not do a great job on my side, I really do think that we kind of dominated, and the last, this is one thing that I wanted to throw out. This is kind of unrelated, but I have to say this. During both Chrissy and Mike's panel, I told you guys this, but during their panel, there was this guy who I'm going to turn my camera on again so you can kind of like see the body language. But there was this guy who was, can you see me right now? There was this guy who was watching their debate, and the dude just the entire time was going, literally, like, I'm not like exaggerating here. Every time they'd say something, and he was triggered, and it was hilarious to see this. And my friend Buck and I just looked at each other, and they were like, yeah, these guys are kicking ass. If they can provoke this sort of reaction from this person, I think at the end of the day, he hated not just the fact that they were putting out these truth bombs, but the fact that the opposition was not really throwing out anything to counter them in any substantial way. So, yeah.
Can I say one thing as well? I think it's important to note, you were saying about the organizers not really realizing a couple of things. Another thing they don't seem to realize, or at least don't find to be an issue, is the hostile environment that they have created. So, it's not just that, a lot of the people that came out, they're like, oh, it's good to see that you have the balls to come here, or that you're courage enough to come. It's, that on one hand, yeah, great, okay, whatever. But on the other hand, it's like, well, a lot of people. I mean, I'm a white white cis passing dude. It's easy for me to kind of look past that stuff. But I know for especially for Chris was there. Like for her, it's a lot more difficult. And for other people who see that environment as a very hostile place with all these it can be a lot more difficult to overcome that. And they obviously, the organizers don't see that as an issue, and they don't see that they have created that kind of environment, because we've talked to them. This was a lot of the stuff we would say last year. The idea that Carl Benjamin is there saying stuff like, "Oh, I wouldn't even rape you." That can be a very hostile environment for certain people, and they don't get that. And I think that's an important thing, that whether they are able to start getting that or overcome it or understanding that otherwise it's not going to change. They're not going to get certain people because of that.
Right. Well, guys, this has been far more than a happy hour. We've gone right into the after bar, but I have to say, Kevin, it doesn't really feel like a happy hour, because I think the chat's been uninsulted this entire time.
No,
fuck the chat.
I typed it in the chat. So
I need to jump real quick. Thanks
fuck Tom
for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. We're wrapping it up, so whenever
and I just want to say, Mike, I had a blast hanging with you, and I hope I get a chance to hang out with everybody else at some point in real life.
Baby.
So
yeah, baby.
Sounds good.
All right. And thanks everyone for watching. I'm outie. Later.
Catch you later. All right. And so it's the Three Musketeers again at the end.
Oi, we did it.
And now Kevin can actually
come
talk.
full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your input, Kevin.
I don't feel like I need to. I feel like the talking's been done.
Did you take a nap while we were having the show?
No, but I was playing a golf game on my phone.
We was pretty much just watching the hangout at that point. But did you give the FU to the chat, Kevin? I know you did verb in the chat, but for the audio, it'll still.
Yeah, fuck Tom.
Pardon?
You still haven't given a proper fuck you to the chat or Tom.
Oh, well, fuck you to Tom, obviously.
Obviously.
All of your goats are belong to me. And fuck you to the chat especially. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, they'll appreciate it. Guys, it's been a super long hangout. I want to thank the guests who are no longer here. I want to thank the chat for sticking around. Some special shout outs to all my wrenches out there, and also PZ, I saw you in the chat, and TMM for stopping by. Nice to meet you in the chat. So I guess that's also all that's left to be said is people in the chat have been awesome, people in the future have been awesome. Go to subscribe to Michael Rowlands' channel. Go to subscribe to Kevin's channel.
What are you saying?
He's saying no.
You guys are weird.
Yeah, basically. Say anything you want to say before you say goodbye, Michael?
No.
Have me. Have me on the next one. I want to talk about other stuff. Yay.
All right, fair enough. Say goodbye, Michael.
Goodbye, Michael.
And Kevin, is there anything you want to say before you say goodbye?
No.
I love you too, Kevin.
No, there isn't. No, I'm not your performing monkey. That's not how it works.
Dance for me, boy. Dance.
All right, well then, say goodbye, Kev.
Goodbye, Kev.
And goodbye from me. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Go away.